Good evening. My name is Christelle from Frans, Klerk, Independent Technical Analyst. This is our second last show for the year. So from my side, I just want to wish every subscriber, viewer, listener, and follower a Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2020. We really hope that this time with your loved ones will be a blessed one, and we hope that next year in 2020, your profits will grow double digits. Wesley wanted us to look at Foschini. Now, Wesley, there are two major patterns here in Foschini that we cannot ignore. The one is this symmetrical triangle, and this bottom line, that bottom trend line on the symmetrical triangle is not really a strong one. Why? Because my trend line only have two touching points. So technically, a symmetrical triangle is an uncertain formation. It means the share price can either continue to decline to lower levels. Profit taking might take place when that strong support waiting there at 152 Rand 36 changes into a resistance, or if the share can change this upper band, that diagonal trend line there, into a support, we can see higher levels. So a symmetrical triangle is an uncertain pattern. You don't know whether the share is going to continue to decline or change that upper band, waiting there around 172 Rand and 5 cents into a support. Now, my stochastic indicator, and that is like as an elastic band, where when it is oversold, the probability or the likelihood of the instrument to reach for higher levels is more likely. And when it's overbought above an 80, it means that the likelihood of the instrument to decline is more likely. Now, at the moment, it's sitting on a 34, which is in no man's land. It doesn't give me a clear indication of what this instrument, or Foschini in this case, might do. At the moment, both indicators, both moving averages within my indicator is still pointing downwards, which means it probably will decline even further if that trend line there around 152 does not remain a support. Now, if I remove this triangle formation, I'm sitting here with a massive head and shoulder formation. And let me draw that for you, Wesley. I've got maybe two left shoulders here with a small false break at the bottom of that neckline, a massive head, and then multiple, depending on how many times you want to count when that neckline was tested as a support on the right side. So I've got multiple right shoulders. Again, it confirmed that neckline. It started to trade below it. In other words, the negativity of this head and shoulder formation was confirmed, but it didn't play out completely. Maybe just a conservative target of one of the shoulders went back, tested the neckline, retraced again, bounced again, changed it into a support, and now it did not only fight the red line, which is that 40-week moving average, it's also fighting the neckline of the head and shoulder formation. So a head and shoulder formation is a negative formation. It's a negative pattern that tells me be careful because the selling pressure can escalate and continue. Now the neckline was confirmed when Foschini started to trade below 169 Rand 25. But take note, Wesley, how close that is to the red line, my 40-week moving average, and that is waiting at 169 Rand 81. We know that if an instrument changes that 40-week moving average into a resistance, it implies that the long-term sentiment towards the instrument has changed to negative. So I don't know if you've got a short-term position here or a long-term position, but that was the first bell that there might be trouble. Now, again, as I've said, my indicator is in no man's land, so this share needs to find buyers and support to lift it again above this neckline, and then I will have a sigh of relief. What is positive for me about this Foschini graph, Wesley, is that this is a possible support that's there. And remember, these are weekly graphs, so this candle needs to finish first. This possible support here, is a little bit higher than this support here. But when will the negativity about this head and shoulder formation be wiped off the table? Only when the share starts to change that top of that right shoulder, they're around 194 Rand 73. Only when the share changes that level into a support will I feel comfortable that this formation is completely off the table and has become obsolete. First sign is that 40-week moving average, also very close to that neckline. I would be very careful to get in there at the moment because of that massive head and shoulder formation, but it is extremely oversold on the daily. So maybe there, if you are a CFD trader, you can use an opportunity. Roland asked us an interesting question, and he asked, we need to explain what a short position is. So I don't want to make it too difficult, but when you buy a share or an equity, you pay the full price for it. So if a share is trading at 154 Rand, you pay the 154 Rand for it, excluding brokerage, settlement charges, VAT, etc. When you trade a CFD, in other words, it's a future or a derivative derived from the share price. So it's a tradable instrument that allows you to take position on the share without paying the full price for it. Big question mark. How do I trade it then? You only pay a deposit, which is also known as a margin. And that gives you exposure to the share. In other words, to trade it on the long side or on the short side and benefit from movement in the share price without paying the full price for it. So a margin is a deposit that you pay in order to trade the instrument. So a CFD is 1-to-1. In other words, if you have one CFD contract, for every cent that thing moves, your P&L will move 1 cent. For every 1 Rand the instrument moves, your profit and loss will move 1 Rand. Now, when we talk about CFDs or futures, any derivative, any tradable derivative future instrument, we talk about long positions and short positions. So a long position is when you buy the instrument at a low price and you profit when it rises and you sell it at a higher price. That is a long position. So you buy low and you sell high. When you short an instrument, you sell at a high price. So in other words, you sell what you don't have. Remember, you're renting the instrument. You pay a deposit. So you short it, you sell first at a high price. And when the instrument declines, you buy it back at a lower price. So you're saying, Christelle, how does that work? If you have a house or a car and you want to sell it, but you can't find a buyer, I come to you and I say, Roland, I've got a buyer for your, let's say, car for 500,000 Rand. I could go to my friend. I say to him, listen, Benny, I've got a car that I want to sell to you for 510,000 Rand. Benny tells me, Christelle, it's a deal. I love it. I take Benny's money, 510,000 Rand. I go to you, Roland, and I buy your car for 500,000 Rand, and I pocketed 10,000 Rand. I have sold something I didn't own and profited from it by selling it at a high price and buying it back at a lower. If this doesn't maybe make sense, Roland, send me an email again. But what is the advantages of trading futures or derivatives on CFDs? You can go long when you think the instrument rises, or you can go short when you think it declines. Very important. When you trade derivatives or futures, you can lose more than you actually have in the account because you only pay a deposit, but you've got free margin that should carry the movement of the instrument. If this share price continues to rise and you are short, you'll be in loss territory. If it declines and you buy back lower, that would be profit territory. I think this was quite important to explain because often in our show we talk about longs and shorts, and I didn't want some of our viewers out there to not understand what that means. All right. So would you rather consider a buy or a short here on Foschini? Maybe a short position if you look at the head and shoulder, but if you look at a daily graph, maybe a long position because it might bounce from oversold levels. Bruce wanted us to look at Shoprite. Shoprite at the moment is one of my favorite shares and graphs on our exchange. Why? Because one, it's caught in a positive descending channel, and that descending channel have been confirmed when the shares changed 123 Rand 81 into a support. Now have a look there. It's building on a possible higher low. It retraced, found support on a beautiful tweezer bottom, bounced a little bit, retraced, found support, bounced, found resistance, retraced, and it's now finding support again. So if this level, and I'm going to give you that exact level, if this level around 137 Rand 61 changes into a support, my next higher low will be confirmed. That will be very positive for Shoprite. What is the next possible resistance that needs to be overcome, and that is that red line, the 40-week moving average, and that is waiting around 149 Rand 21. What is the target of my descending channel? It's the width of the channel projected upwards from where it was confirmed, which means ShopRite can go to 162 Rand 75. So, and when will I be nervous about ShopRite again? When that lower band there around 124.80, that support there changes into a resistance. If I zoom out, Bruce, you can see that ShopRite is trading at around the same levels it did here in February 2016. The share is has seen extreme profit-taking levels this year, and it looks like it wants to turn around. Have a look at these levels. I would start to accumulate maybe this share for the long term. If you don't have it at the moment, it looks like there's some buyer interest. And this tweezer bottom, I just want to zoom it out for you. This tweezer bottom here was a beautiful turnaround pattern. And there as well, two long lower shadows on two consecutive candles that highlighted support from the buyers. And again, maybe we can see it as well. We saw it once, twice, and maybe even 3 times. That will be seen as very optimistic. Higher lows, maybe a possible change of the 40-week moving average, and that confirmation of the descending channel gives me a tick mark next to ShopRite for possible upside.